What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of You for Solo Leveling. This is episode 6, and with me, as always, I have Woospid.
um, for A1 Pictures, I mean, we rarely ever get something as good as they put out. I mean, the last time that A1 Pictures has done anything this good was the Sword Art Online War of Underworld arc, and like they definitely went all out with uh, with basically just this entire episode, the way they did the fight scenes, and of course, like many people have pointed out that they did the manhwa justice, based on the way they adapted some of the panels.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the animation was pretty good this episode for the fight scenes. Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, A1 Pictures, like I feel like they're kind of hit and miss with a lot of series. Sometimes they don't really put a lot of effort into the animation and it tends to look kind of stiff. Other times they just, for whatever reason, they put all kinds of, like, they just put everything into the animation and it looks really good. I feel like for certain series, it seems like they put a lot of either budget or talented animators have those people like that working on it. Like, for instance, like you said, like Sword Art Online. And I guess for Solo Leveling is one of those series that they decided to actually, like, put some effort into.
Yeah. This episode, of course, picks up with Genu fighting the spider boss. And with his current level, I mean, he doesn't, he of course solos it by himself, and he manages, with his current abilities, he's able to run fast enough, despite his limitations, and his fatigue setting in, but he's able to take it down immediately by just using the dagger that he obtained a few episodes ago to basically just paralyze this and weaken the boss by stabbing it in the eye multiple times.
Well, at first he basically was like trying to find a weak point on the spider, and he tries to hit the spider on its head, which was, I guess, like reinforced, so he can't hit it there. And eventually, he finds out the weak point is the eye, which, yeah, he uses like some kind of debilitation or paralyzing effects on it, which, yeah, ends up taking it down. And
Yeah. Uh, uh,
the guy who's with him,
yep.
I keep forgetting his name.
Jinho.
Jinho, yeah, like he's basically figures that that Sung is lying about his rank. That he's like one of these people, I guess, that apparently there are people in the world that pretend that they're a lower rank than what they are. So I guess they can, so I guess they can get into like lower level dungeons. The reason for like why they'd want to do that, though, I'm not exactly sure. I guess just to like, I guess maybe they just for their own ends, or they have some ulterior motive or whatever it is. I guess they lie about what rank they are. So
Yeah.
yeah, he thinks that Sung is one of those people.
Yeah. I mean, Jinho's never really technically met an actual false ranker before. But I would assume that it's one of the stories or rumors that he apparently heard prior to this. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that Jinho is a bit like skeptical about like Jinu's strength. But of course, after Jinu takes down the spider, you know, Gino decides, to become. I guess you could say, he's become essentially become, like the sidekick of the story.
Yeah, because he starts like, well, he starts calling Sung Aniki, which is like a respectful term for like an like a, kind of like an elder brother technically, but
Yeah,
uh yeah, he basically like is treating him like he's above him, and yeah, like acting like he's like a servant basically.
yeah. So, well, just as well, when Gino was in the middle of like harvesting these crystals, the previous group that abandoned them end up re-entering the boss room, uh, which to their surprise, they find that both Jinyu and Jinho, both survived the boss fight. Um, so they figured that Jinho was the one who took down the boss just because like he's wearing that all that fancy armor and a sword that he got from his father. So they decide to kill Jinho to take his equipment. But of course, Jinwoo steps in to try to defend him. But then all of a sudden, the system gives him a new quest in which he needs to kill all 6 of those guys. Otherwise, his heart will stop.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, he's kind of like having, I guess, essentially a moral dilemma as to if he should actually, because he's just killed monsters up until this point, and killing a human is completely different. He's like trying to debate with himself if he should actually go through with trying to kill a human, even though they're considering the situation they're in. But he really doesn't have much of a choice because, yeah, like you said, the system basically says that if he doesn't, his heart will stop. So he pretty much has to go through with it. And I mean, the series has been pretty dark before, but I mean, it gets pretty dark here too because we see Jinwoo or not Jinwoo, but Sung, basically like he's confronted by one of the men that are with them, basically where he's essentially like saying there's no way he can take on all of them, and with his level, but he takes the guy by surprise by just like bringing out his knife and like slitting it, or well, not slitting his throat, but like cutting his head off, basically. And of course, this surprises everybody because they're not really expecting that based on his rank. And essentially, that's when they start attacking him, and he kind of, pretty easily for the most part, takes them all down. At first, like he got, he wasn't really willing to kill them or anything, and he got like pushed back by one of them, and he got like kind of like thrown against the wall, I guess. And then then he, I guess now he's gotten serious and is like treating them as basically any other enemy.
Well, it's during that point when he hesitates and gets taken down at first, he starts thinking back, with that traumatizing event to what happened earlier when he was fighting against those giant statues.
Yeah.
So like he feels like that he's in survival mode at this point. And with him, just he doesn't like, it gets to the point where he just doesn't really hesitate to to show any compassion against these guys that tried to kill him, at least, well, according to him, 3 times.
Yeah. What was the other guys? It was like Dong or something, that one guy that betrayed him. Dong Suk, yeah. So he activates, I guess, some kind of reinforcement magic, where he like reinforces his body and he tries to take on Sung, but Sung kind of easily takes him down as well. He kind of just he ends up also decapitating him with his knife.
Well, before this, like, he tries to plead for his life at
Yeah.
first, like
Well,
first with money.
he says like
And then,
says something about like my brother or something, but then it gets cut off. When Jinwoo basically just kills him, or not Jinwoo, but Sung. And I guess like I'm wondering if that's the person, because we do see somebody at the end of the episode, and I guess maybe that possibly is his brother. Like, and I guess that maybe he's going to become one of the villains or something.
it
His brother might
it
go
could
after him.
be. But there's another thing I have of about this whole situation is that it is like, in particular, like, the system that's apparently not only making Sung powerful, but it's also like forcing him to commit these acts,
Yeah.
just in order for him to level up. So like it's not like any kind of AI or anything like that. It has something to do with, like, I guess, those giant statue godlike things, that gave him the power in the first place. And we could speculate they're trying to control Sung to some extent.
Well, I'm
And
wondering if the series is gonna address like what those actually are, or if there is like or if there is some reason as to why they gave him this power, and like why they're basically forcing him to do all this.
yeah, I mean, well, of course, like they're giving him quests, for him
Yeah.
that he's required to complete. Like, even, for example, those daily, like, exercise routines in which he has to do 100 push-ups, squats, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, like, he like before, like, he was thrown into like that 4-hour survival quest in which he had to run away from that giant that giant worm-like thing from in the desert.
Yeah. We should also mention too in the episode we have like these. I don't know if we've been introduced to this girl already, but we have like a scene of her talking to these other girls that I guess are also in the Hunters Guild. Um, and they're
Yeah,
yeah
yeah, we don't get a lot of screen time with some of these other S rank characters, particularly like Shahain, who's one of the female main protagonists of the story. She's only been like she's only had like very small scenes in just a handful of episodes.
yeah. We just kind of
But
have another scene basically where the one of the girls I guess was talking about an experience where she was I guess in a dungeon with her and she ended up like saving them. I guess just to show like that she's like just how powerful she is, like I guess being one of the S ranked hunters.
yeah. And then we do see like a couple more characters. I don't know their names, but I could assume that they're also S rank as well. So it's I don't know. Like I feel like it's a weird way for them to introduce them uh, this way, but it's obvious like that as soon as like Sung gets as powerful as an S rank, that he'll start interacting with these people in some way. But with the show being already halfway at this point, I really find it hard to believe like how like if whether or not that he'll really interact with these people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's going to cross paths with Chahine and some of these other characters eventually. Like especially after maybe his like some of his exploits get out, like people find out, I guess, how powerful he actually is. Of course, in this
Yeah,
episode, like the only person that knows how powerful he is um, the guy that was with
is it
yeah
Jinho?
Jinho. Yeah, he's the only one that knows. I'm sure, like maybe he'll probably like end up telling other people or something. Either he ends up telling other people, or other people see for themselves just how powerful he is. Um,
I don't know if he'll go through that because what happened at the end of this episode is there is like one of the people investigating or like interviewing them as to what happened in that dungeon. She believes that that all
yeah,
the
that
six other adventurers that Sung ended up killing were killed by the boss, and supposedly Jinho, with his so-called advanced equipment, was the one who got them out of that situation.
yeah,
So she just without really she just like basically just writes off this whole situation as like as a as a bad incident against the boss without really questioning the fact that Sung was the one who killed all of them in the first place.
yeah. But yeah, I thought this is a pretty good episode. I thought yeah, especially like I think the last two episodes have been really good. I like how this episode like I do like how the series is really not afraid to get as dark as it does at times, like especially with this episode in particular. I mean, obviously we've seen that with like that just the scene with the statues. But I mean, this is kind of I mean, feel like this episode just kind of reinforces like how like how messed up things can get, especially in a situation like this where you have to fight other humans, and he's not really given much of a choice. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, but
I would say that the system that Sung is utilizing, I wouldn't say you could call it, its friend, but I would say at the same time, I would say it's an enemy as well. Because
yeah,
it literally just forced him to kill, these six adventurers.
yeah, like
Otherwise it would have killed him had he not done it.
as far as I know, like it seems like he's basically under the control of some sort of like malevolent entity or malevolent god that is, of course we don't know yet what the reasons are for why it's doing what it's doing, but it seems to like I mean as far as we can tell, it's of course using Song for its own ends essentially, and it doesn't really seem to care much as to what really happens to him as a result or anything like that. Uh,
I mean, who's to say that this system will force Sung into a position where he has to sacrifice, people he cares about
yeah,
in
I think
exchange
that's
for
going to
power.
be pretty interesting if it ever puts him in some kind of some other kind of moral dilemma or something, or something, or maybe something where maybe his sister or whoever, somebody else he cares about, is like their life is at stake or for because of the system. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see like if he's like torn between like obeying it or just like trying to like kind of go against it in a way. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. I definitely think the series is getting a lot more interesting, with what's going on with Sung and like like we were talking about, the system is kind of telling him to do all this stuff. Um, but I like I said, I also like the tone of it and how it's not afraid to get as dark as it does at times. Um, but yeah, I like I said, yeah, I don't have much else to say though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I'm like I was a little bit skeptical going into this show, but yeah, it got even better, the longer I've watched this. I mean, it took at
Mhm.
least like half a season to get as good as it did, but it's really it's definitely gonna get even better the longer this goes on. It just sucks that, like I said, it's already halfway through the season, and I really wish that if they knew it was gonna be this good, they could have made at least 2 cores at this point.
I mean,
I mean,
I think it helps too that apparently, as far as I know, like I think the manhwa is actually finished, so
yeah,
they could pretty much do I guess a full adaptation of it if they wanted to.
yeah, but but from like like I said, I haven't so far I haven't read that far into the manhwa yet, but it's still very early with, with the number of chapters that the show has adapted, and they
Yeah,
have a long way to go.
I mean, at least it's not. I'm guessing it's probably not as long as something like Tower of God, for instance, which I think has been going on for quite a while now, and I don't think it's finished. So, I mean, at least it's not. It's probably not that long. So, but yeah, I would imagine there probably need to be like multiple seasons before they get anywhere near the end of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, guys. So that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.